Hello, everybody. My name is Ratnos, and I'm joined, as you can see, by Tettles, as always.
Okay, dude, what is this picture?
What do you mean? What is this picture?
All right, I see what you've done.
um, so, for our audio-only listeners, Tettles, his webcam is like broken or something today, or something like that. I don't know. It's weird. So we've got no Tettles webcam. We also aren't joined by Trell this week. Trell was busy over the past week doing MDI time trials practice, although now his team is falling apart and stuff. So
Can you not word it like that?
look, I don't know, man. It sucks. It's tough to see. Um, so that's what's happening with Trell. Hopefully, he'll be back sometime soon. That's the future that we hope to be in sometime soon. But for now, he's taking this one off as well, which is of course totally fine. We are of course still here over at twitch.tv/Tettles, where we have moved to since a couple weeks ago. This week we're going to talk about Sloot's interview with Ian Hesychostas. We're going to talk about the alpha in general, as that is something that's been out for a while. And we're going to talk about the MDI, which last week we weren't able to say this, but of course both Tettles, you and myself are both casting the MDI.
Congratulations, Ratnus, on casting the MDI. I felt like you did a really good job this past weekend.
Congratulations, Tettles, on somehow getting asked to cast again after they already had seen you cast once.
Okay, bro. With all your stuffed audio and sounding like you talked through a potato, it'd be a miracle if you even get to cast the second cup that they hired you for.
That's fair. That is, yeah. Our audio, actually, all of ours was kind of bad, but mine was the worst. It was, it's not like our mics or anything. People kept saying our mics, like we're using the same mics now that we used on that, right? It's just there was a like connection issue thing on the production side of things that hopefully they figured out for this coming weekend. So
it is what it is. It's also not YouTube either. I don't know what it was from.
Yeah, it's just the system they were using to collect all of our audio feeds in together somewhere along the way. After I sent out a beautiful, pristine audio packet, somewhere along the way something happened to it. And there were a lot of steps in that process that it could have been. But I think they figured it out actually towards the end of the weekend, which is nice. So that's what's happening with the MDI. That's why it's a pretty busy time for all of us. We'll be, of course, still doing our show, though. We're planning to do it every week, even though the MDI is going on. But of course, we're gonna be on this weird timing of Wednesday live, Thursday release until that is over, which is in like 5 more weekends. So then we'll be back to weekends probably, unless we really like weekdays.
I think I prefer the weekends. I don't know. Maybe you and I will have to have a conversation about that later.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. We can take a look at the metrics and see what all the viewer engagement stuff looks like, and then just make a decision based off that, as would befit a World of Warcraft podcast. Okay, so MDI. We had EU and Asia play last weekend. That was an exciting cup. There was quite a high level of competition there. All 8 really of the ones in the top 8 look pretty good, right, Tettles?
Dude, genuinely, I believe that all 8 of those European teams were fairly strong. I do agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that it was pretty fun to watch. I don't know if you guys check out the VOD. It's actually, there's quite a lot of good gameplay in there. We saw some very interesting strategies develop this weekend as well. So let's take a look at this one. This one was Zamok's strategy against Puluka, and let's see if they show it. So they're going, yeah, they're this is in Freehold, and they were going into this boss fight, and instead of fighting the awakened enemies, Zamok just grabbed them all and yeeted right out of there. So if you watch this, it's on the left-hand side of the screen of the current VOD. It's the Perplex versus Puluka game.
Yeah.
And yeah,
so in addition to that, so what we saw was Zamok doing this, and then immediately we saw a bunch of the American teams, a Taltazar time trial time dropped by approximately 2 minutes. I wonder really what could have happened with that.
Yes, Taltazar is a cool one as well, because you grab threat and then you jump off the staircase thing.
Yep, you jump off the little ledge and then
these things.
Just run away.
Very, very, very cool. Yeah. You could even let fight the awakened enemies for a couple seconds first, and then have the healer like Formless Void AoE taunt if you're having like threat grabbing issues, that kind of stuff. I don't know, it's pretty cool. And then yeah, Zmok was just running this. He was running this like circuit. Now, unfortunately, this ended up not working out for them in the actual grand finals against Method EU. Zmok had a little bit of an oopsie where they found a new snap spot. And for anybody wondering, an MDI is never the time where you want to find a new snap spot. Not during a cup. That is something that you want to find out during time trials. And that's really not a discovery that you want to make during a cup. So they found a new snap spot where it snapped all the awakened enemies to Zmok, and then he died, and then they all teleported back to the rest of the group, and that was all over for them. But still a very, very cool strategy to see coming out of Perplexed. Perplexed ended up getting second in the MDI that weekend, and I think we're going to see a little bit more of this strategy until such a time as Blizzard, implements something to stop that from working, right? Which they might do.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see, like, with the Americans team too. Like, do you think that this strategy should even be a thing? Do you think it'll probably get bug fixed? Like, because obviously that's not intended, right?
Yeah,
it should probably reset the block.
It's kind of cool, but I don't know. I do think they should probably fix it. Like, obviously that's not what that's supposed to look like. I don't know what good fixes are for it. Like, but. I mean, yeah, you could just make the boss reset if they get more than like you could make them coded like boss mobs, where if they reset the boss if they're out of bounds of the boss room too. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, this is only like doable in a couple of dungeons. Like, it's doable in dungeons that you don't need a healer on the final boss, and you have like infinite space to be able to kite. So I wonder if it's actually doable in Gorak Tool. Maybe.
Yeah,
I guess it can.
You could do it without, like, the healer could stay in, right? And you could have a DPS kite, but and that could still be a time save, right? It's just that would be a much less dramatic time save compared to like just doing one of the obelisks.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I definitely do agree with that. It'll be interesting to see if that doesn't get fixed. I assume that Perplexed, like with them doing the strategy, I assume that they were probably shadow melding off obelisks before that got fixed, though.
Right? Yeah, because a week ago you could shadow meld obelisks on the tournament server. Like, you could do it on live too, where you'd pull the boss away from the obelisk spawned, and then you just everybody would shadow meld, and the boss would stay in combat, and the other 4 awakened enemies would drop combat. They fixed how that worked. Yeah. I imagine this is probably also going to get fixed. Like that, I don't think they're as cool as it was, and they did actually this way. You do actually engage with the awakened enemies, but like it's not. That's not what it's supposed to look like. So I don't know. I don't know if they're going to bother fixing it, but maybe.
This is at least cooler than that, I will admit. At least this is, you were giving up a lot versus like the latter, which is just you're melding.
Yeah, and clearly there was a chance of failure as well, given that they failed half the time they tried it. So
I mean,
it may be okay.
I tweeted at Zmok, and Zmok was like, "That is actually just so incredibly scary." Then I just tweeted back, I was like, "Corruption, Sloot, monk ass."
Yeah, I mean, Mistweaver has quite a few tools, right? Like you can diffuse or dispel the fear, dispel the slow. Tiger's Lust to corruption slow. Tiger's Lust to slow, and you got a lot of mobility too. Seems like it is probably a Mistweaver specific thing, though. I guess Druid might be able to do it too. I don't know. You got some kicks at the start, and then you just got to like get out of there. Okay, so that was what happened in the MDI. Tettles, there was one rule change that I'd like to ask you your opinions about. So in the grand finals of this MDI, the Keystone level was raised from 19 to 20. Do you have any thoughts on how that played out?
I mean, okay, so I think that all the competitors are definitely not a fan of jumping from 19 to 20. I think we saw largely the exact same strategies, but the main difference was consistency, right?
Yes, yeah. We saw basically the same pulls, except the teams like wiped them more often than they would have in the 19s, right?
Well, yeah, like especially in something like Siege of Borealis, like we saw like both of the teams were doing the exact same strategy that they did in the 19 Siege of Borealis as they did in the 20 Siege of Borealis, except the difference is like that Hadal room, the trash ended up living like 10% longer, so the pull was dramatically more scary, and now ended up having to like pop a Lightfoot potion. It was just hanging on by a thread, like a hair there. And it's like, I don't know. I'm not the biggest fan of jumping from 19 to 20 just for the grand finals, personally.
Yeah, so it's one of those cases where definitely the players are not happy about it as well.
Yeah, exactly. The play is strictly worse for the players.
That being said,
does it make for a better viewer experience?
Right, that's the question. Is like, is it worth? Because some of the things you do in a competition the players are not gonna like, but like it makes it better for the viewers. There's an argument about that, for instance, with the viewer-selected affixes on Twitter as well. I don't know. I think that one drawback of the 19 to 20 thing is the huge advantage that it compounds of being in the upper bracket for longer. Because, like, if you win your upper bracket finals, you have 5 hours to practice those plus 20s. Whereas if you don't, if you're in the lower bracket, you have basically no time where you like can really practice those plus 20s and have it be the right thing to do. So I worry about that expanding an advantage that, you know, is always going to exist, but I don't think we need to buff the upper bracket already anymore.
I definitely do agree with that. It is, you know, I had never thought about it in like just like so black and white like you thought, where it is significantly an advantage for the upper bracket teams as well.
That being said, you know, if like people are talking about how it made things way spicier, and like I don't know, like they did do the same pulls pretty much, and it mostly worked, except we saw Method EU and Perplexed having trouble with pulls that they otherwise wouldn't have had trouble with in a, you know, if it was in the plus 19 key, and that may have made for a better viewer experience. I don't know. If I was making the rules, I would probably not be doing it, but I think we'll have to see how it keeps playing out. Like if it keeps making exciting finals, because I think the finals were both pretty exciting games in both those dungeons.
Yeah, I mean, it really comes down to that. Like if it becomes more exciting and not just like a total fiesta match because neither of the teams really know what they're doing, then maybe you would need to like reconsider. But like if it was what it was last weekend, which was Perplex versus Method EU, where it did actually just make the matches more spicy, then maybe there's some upsides.
Because it's always going to be the two best teams in the tournament so far, right? It's not like you're ever going to put like whichever 8th seed team is just barely qualified, unless they're having a tournament, right? Unless they're winning their matches and beating those better or the teams that qualified higher. They're not going to run it, right?
I don't think I expect any of the teams to actually be practicing for 20s.
Exactly, like, like you're basically just going to do your plus 19 route, and like except maybe some teams will like back off some stuff in it, but we didn't see anybody doing that. We basically just saw them being like, yeah, we'll just do it. We'll do our best.
Yeah, I mean, I think that does have merit, and that's kind of cool in some regards. The fact that like the teams are probably not going to be practicing the 20, so that like they may have to adapt or somewhat, or maybe pull a little bit smaller, or just commit to the strategy that they've already implemented and just roll with it.
Yeah, I'm not going to be a fan of if the strategy development ends up being like let's pull conservatively. That'll probably be less exciting to watch. Although maybe that'd be good. I don't know. People like one of the problems with the MDI for viewership is that like folks watch it and it looks so different from the keys they do on live servers, right? And so if you kind of if you trick teams or if you force teams to pull smaller because they have less practice, you know, then you kind of make it look a little bit more like live servers. I don't know. It's a tough line to walk for sure. Anyways,
I was actually impressed with the YouTube viewership this weekend.
Yeah, so the MDI, of course, on YouTube now instead of Twitch comes with a couple of changes. Although a lot of things got blamed on that switch that were really just a result of doing the remote production instead of an in-studio production.
Yes.
So, you know,
yes.
Like 50% of the stuff that was different was because of that and not the switch of platform. But yeah, I think it went fairly well, all things considered. And I think it'll be a lot of the like worst stuff will be ironed out in the future weeks, like the audio stuff. We also have Ian Hazakostas did an interview with Slootbag. Our, I guess just Sloot now is what we call him, right? So
yeah.
He changed that one, yeah.
But first, we got to shout out our Patreons over at patreon.com.
Oh, that's a good call, dude. All right, do you want to do it this week?
Sure, I can.
All right,
so big shout out to Paul of US Proudmoore, King of Skills, VTech XD, Zuku, Ja, Drunk Sweet from Legion of Lemmings, Argent Dawn EU, I Wish I Was Dratinus' Dino Pillow, Tootsie, Heltari, Ishio, Blue of Emerald Dream, Chrome, Seraphicus, Trekkie, The Marshare, Regulus, Never Knew, Grizzjam, Chewy, Do You Want to Build a Snow Trell, Palion, who ran out of jokes for the segment, Coke Dogs Gopher, Worgen Death, more like Worgen Dead, Rude Dinosaur, Rightin of the Guild, Taryn Mill, recruiting /mage /warlock. All right.
Recruiting mage /warlock. That's a common thing, I think, to see in guilds recruitment posts.
Welcome to Ranged DPS.
Yeah. Good luck finding your mages and warlocks there. All right, so Ian Hazakostas' interview with Sloot. I think so. This was designed to kind of address a lot of the top concerns that people have There's a little Wowhead post that summarizes and links to the actual interview itself here, if anybody wants to read along with what we're looking here. So
that is a significantly that is a really good picture of Ian for that thumbnail.
yeah, yeah. And let me just resize this window a little bit. All right, there we go. So let's do the bullet points here. I guess we'll start with we'll do it in a different order. So yeah, okay. There are no plans for another large drop of additional class changes. They wanted to drop large changes and revamps early, so there's plenty of time to get feedback and change things. So
Sure.
that makes sense to me. So to me, there's a couple of specs that I'm a little disappointed aren't getting more changes. Stuff like Destruction and Demonology Warlock. I think, you know, they're Feral Druid, yeah, Survival Hunter. Those are specs that I personally, but I don't main those specs, so I don't know if the people who play them are like really happy with the fundamentals on them.
I think okay. So first and foremost, I think that I don't even know if players are necessarily happy with those specs or not, or if the dev team is happy with those specs or not. But something I do notice is that regardless of whether or not the class is in a good spot or not, like think about Destruction Lock. I think Destruction Lock is largely in an okay spot right now, especially with how Azerite and everything else works. But I think everybody wants to see their class have some fundamental or core gameplay changes going into the next expansion.
Although
more than Shadow Fury cast time reduction.
Although, if your spec is in a good spot, you kind of just don't want them to change things, right? Like a lot of people point back to a previous time and they're like, this was the moment where my spec got worse. So if it's in a good spot right now, then, doesn't really need changing, right?
I am concerned with them like stripping away Azerite and Essences though, because that makes a lot of classes just like feel strictly better.
The Essences and stuff. I mean, that's the thing though, is like those expansion level systems always go away at the end of the expansion, right? So like Legion Legendaries went away, Legion Artifact traits went away. You got the new stuff in the next expansion to replace that. And they put the really popular ones into the talent tree or baseline, right? Like Chaotic Transformation's kind of becoming baseline for DH.
Yeah, true.
Glimmer's going on the talent tree for Holy Paladin, so like yes, specs are gonna feel a little bit incomplete at the start of an expansion, but I don't know. Like at the start of the expansion, you're kind of just scuffed a little bit.
Yeah, but okay, so Sistara is actually making a really good point. Spend 3 years building up systems, rip them out overnight. Spend 3 years trying to make new systems balance. That's about how they do it every single expansion. They want to make every expansion feel new. We're going to be getting more player power via covenants, and they have alluded towards legendaries similar to what
legendaries, soulbinds, all of those effects are gonna
exactly.
Yeah, those are gonna affect you by quite a lot, right? I agree though that like yeah, stuff going away and them always working to balance things. But like if classes never changed, like that's what Classic is like, right? Like the Classic is just the same balance it's always been, right?
Yeah, I absolutely agree. It's not always going to be. It's never going to be balanced. The game is always going to be in fluctuation, and things are always going to need to change. I think that's why people were so upset about tier sets being gone. Right. Because it kind of always kept the game in motion.
Yeah, tier sets are something that like goes away at the end of every patch, even not every expansion. You get some power from your tier set, and then it goes away, and that's people like that. So it's not it like stuff going away, and class changes aren't good because they're there forever, right? They swap around.
Exactly, and it's like not only is it just the not only is it just the tier sets themselves, but like occasionally you'll get the 2% tier bonus, which sucks. Occasionally you'll get the 10% tier bonus, which sucks. But they're always in fluctuation, and it always like brings new things to the meta, and it will constantly revamp your style of play for your class and your spec specifically. Which is what I liked about tier sets, is that it always changed up how my class functioned.
Somebody in chat is asking, does Shadowlands have some kind of Azerite trait system? Yes, but you have to pick at the start of the expansion, and then you can never change it. That's you have to pick a covenant.
So okay, yeah. So I guess we're about to start into covenants. Do you want to start expanding a little bit more than just that?
So covenants are you get an ability that you get an ability regardless of what class you are playing. Some of them, like one is like a blink, a teleport that you can target somewhere. One's like a shield you can put on yourself. And then you get an ability based on what class you're playing as well. So like if you pick the Kyrian Covenant as a warrior, you get a AoE spear that you can throw that also tethers everything that gets hit for 4 seconds to that location. But if you pick the Venthyr Covenant as a warrior, then instead you get an upgrade to your execute ability where it works on things above 80% as well, and it does some extra damage. So that, you get to pick between those two different things, and then the Covenant choice also comes with some other stuff. Looks like there's ways to upgrade those Covenant abilities. It looks like there's Soul Binds, which are sort of like a passive talent tree that comes out, associated with that, with each Covenant as well, that enhances your skills, and each one can be a little bit different. But one thing that there was a lot of concern about, and which Ian has addressed in this interview, was the prospect of getting a covenant or picking a covenant and then wanting a different one for a different kind of content. You can imagine, for example, a big AoE spear that tethers everything that gets hit doing something really, really good in some cases. And then you could imagine for like a single target raid boss fight, really, really wanting an upgraded execute ability that does damage above 80% health as well as below 20% health, right? Like you could imagine those two being really, really good in their specific abilities.
Yeah, and Ian used an example. So he said that, they're going to be different. Okay, so this is me just relaying information. This is not my take. He said that they're definitely going to commit to power locking it, and they want you to be like making sure that you're picking the full package of that covenant, and they will try to turn the knob to make sure that they are balanced against one another in certain ways. He said, but there will be there will be one that is the best for the first boss in the instance, and there will be one that is probably better for a different boss in the exact same instance, and you just have to pick in advance. But you're picking the full package, and they're trying to bring back meaningful choice and RPG elements to the game. I am not the biggest fan, and he went on to compare it to racials, which
I forgot about all the I mean, okay, there's one time in the last couple of years that we've had a racial be, actually there's 2 times, Shadow Meld and Arcane Torrent, where we have had racials that have been anywhere close to as impactful as these Covenant abilities look. And Shadow Meld and Arcane Torrent were extremely broken, extremely broken. Troll on Jaina, Goblin Jump on KJ. It's true. There were a couple other times where racials were really, really broken, but like besides those specific boss fights, like Arcane Torrent across all of Legion, right, was like if you didn't have that in Mythic Plus and you weren't playing Blood Elf, right, you were trolling.
Yeah, okay, but if I could commit to a covenant that had the same same amount of player power disparity, like if the covenants and the racials had the same amount of player power disparity, I would be mostly fine with it.
Agree.
The covenants by design, though, don't look like it's going to be like that. It looks like there are going to be just like very large swings as to what you're going to want for AoE and what you're going to want for single target. And like, all right, so I am a high-end Mythic Raider who also enjoys Mythic Plus content. What am I supposed to do? Like, really? It just comes into question of what do you want to do with your content? And sure, I guess it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. I'm sure it'll probably be close to a few percent. But say there is a large disparity between just vastly different forms of content, like Mythic Plus and Raid. All right, do I really want 2 characters? Hell no, I don't. But are they making me have 2 completely separate characters? I don't know. It seems like it.
I mean, I don't really care. I'm a degenerate. I farmed 7 Bloods of the enemy. I'll have 4 warriors, whatever. I'm fine with that. But most people, I think, don't like that.
Also one of the biggest problems with the game as a whole is the delta between single target and AoE is just not close. Okay, so most classes are balanced between like a single 10% single target window. There are classes that will do 3 times the amount of other classes on AoE, though. Which, is that fair? I don't really find that fair either. They're not balanced. Like, AoE is just inherently not balanced.
Yeah, AoE is tough, and that's another thing that we can talk about. They introduced a cap here to a lot of AoE abilities. So they're trying to increase the distinction between cleave and AoE by putting some abilities like Fel Barrage on a 5-target cap, Blade Dance on a 5-target cap, and a lot of melee specs used to excel at cleave only, and then kind of the AoE was from casters and stuff. This
Okay.
so I actually am not. I do not mind this philosophy. The problem I have is the specific implementation here is
yes.
a
Okay,
5 target cap. For above 5 targets, there are some specs that are going to deal 0 additional damage per target, beyond a 5th target. So
okay, so most class, like in most situations and for most classes, you're not going to pull more than 5 targets at a time anyway.
right, yeah.
But in the situations that you are, it's like incredibly detrimental. Like especially think about like on death effects and whatnot.
Yeah.
Like how are you supposed to deal with bolstering? Okay,
well,
so
bolstering's not a big deal because you hit a different 5 targets with each of your casts.
No,
right?
You hit the closest 5 targets.
Okay, yeah. Right.
Fury Warrior hits the closest 5 targets.
That's I mean, you can move around.
Okay, Sword Snap and a Tal'Dazar.
That's true. Yeah, you can't really move around there.
Okay, there we go. Like it's like or initiates.
Yeah.
Okay, sure. Let me try to hit the different 5 targets.
But to some extent, they could fix like that particular concern. They can remove with just designing dungeons to not have initiate pulls, right?
I hate that idea, but yeah, they did say that. They said that they're going to look more so at designing dungeons to where you're not pulling these quote degenerate style pulls.
So
let me explain something to you. That is not happening. They're going to just pull you. They're just going to pull that many targets anyway.
I have a list of dungeons actually that are where the AoE cap would not have been impacted, like where it would be fine with the AoE cap in place.
For how many expansions ago?
Going back all of WoW's history.
Okay.
King's Rest, except for the second boss room, pretty much fine with an AoE cap of 5. Assault on Violet Hold the first time, the Oculus, and Black Morass. Those are the dungeons that I can come up with where you would not feel bad and have to adjust your pathing based on an AoE cap. Now, one thing that strikes me out of those 5 dungeons is that those are kind of some of the ones that have been least liked in WoW's history, right?
God, I love Black Morass.
Like Assault on Violet Hold, right? So I don't know, like those are the only ones I can think of where like they could fix it with dungeon design by making everything look like Black Morass, because like Black Morass, yeah, you don't care about an AoE cap in there. The things are just you fight one wave at a time and there's no option to pull any more.
Okay, so I've actually done the new dungeon 3 times, and I made like a post on the forums about what I thought about the dungeon in of itself. Let me tell you, you are pulling more than 5 targets a few times in that dungeon already.
Yeah, so
it's like we're doing it on a normal, and this dungeon feels incredibly overtuned. So I'm definitely already pulling over 5 targets.
You're doing it on normal with like underpowered characters as well, so it is tough. I think that for me, there are boss fights. There's a boss fight in there that has more than 5 targets active at the same time.
The second boss spawns like 5 mobs on top of it.
It kind of doesn't, like a boss fight that spawns 5 mobs, like an AoE cap of 5 isn't a problem there. Like Fury Warrior could deal with that fine in current WoW, right? Like that's not the big problem with it. The problem is that like you're fighting 5 enemies, there's no longer an incentive to pull anymore.
Something I actually was interested, and I actually made a post on the forums about it. I don't know what they're looking to do with how dungeons are actually designed, especially with how that Necrotic Wake dungeon works out. Because the way it feels is that they want you to CC mobs and like pull like it's Cataclysm again. Like you CC a couple of mobs in a pack, and then you pull 3 mobs out of the pack, and then you do the other 2. And I will admit, I'm not a fan. I feel like every pack should at least be doable by itself. And if you want, you can actually just like CC some mobs in 2 separate packs, and then you can combine pulls if you're really feeling it. But like the mages and the necromancer pull, they cast Frostbolt Volley, and there's 2 mages up at once, and they both cast Frostbolt Volley, and it's on less than a melee kick. There's also these ads, these knights that are in the Necrotic Wake, that they have a circle for their fear cast. Their fear is on less than a melee kick. It's on a 10-second interrupt rotation. But the circle cast goes off before you can even get out of the circle, and it fears you. So that's a 4 melee kick rotation. And
or if you're all ranged, you just ignore the ability, right? Because you're out of range of it.
Or that, but you know what I'm saying, right? It's just...
Yeah.
I see stuff like that, and I question what the point is.
it's definitely interesting. You know, a lot of people talk about a return to like tactical pulling and crowd control and stuff. Um, I am happy to let them experiment with that a little bit. I hope that that is still fun because I feel like the most fun the dungeons have been is, you know, since M Plus has been implemented and challenge modes and stuff, and um, I hope that those aren't, you know, replaced with classic dungeons, especially now that classic exists because you can go back and do classic and just play that in classic. That is there for you.
Wasn't Infested that experiment? Somebody
Yeah, that's
chat
true.
says?
Infested
Absolutely.
and Infested and Beguiling are the ones like that. Whereas Reaping, for instance, cannot exist in an AOE capped world, and that, yeah, like imagine being a Fury Warrior in Reaping was such a sad experience, actually. Or being a marksmanship hunter or a balance druid even.
And I hope that Necrotic Wake is the exception, not the rule to this. But I was majorly concerned, especially since they also had like the final dungeon or the final boss of that dungeon. Did not scale exactly well if there was tyrannical that's going to be implemented. So I just looked at it and I was like, all right, well, we are back to Vic Goth, the second coming here with an 8-minute encounter on tyrannical.
Yeah. Let me just do a little spiel about what I think would be okay in an AOE cap here.
Go ahead.
I think that the philosophy behind implementing this, I actually don't mind. Of, you know, differentiating cleave and AOE abilities. So a soft cap I think is fine. A soft cap that starts at one target is totally fine. There are a lot of abilities like this where they'll hit a primary target for a lot and then secondary targets for a small amount. So soft capping starting at one, absolutely allowed. Hard capping starts at like 8 or 10 targets, I'm okay with it as well. You know, if your ability stops dealing damage above 8 or 10 targets, I'm fine with that too. Hard capping at 5 targets, I'm also fine with some of that. But I'm not fine if a class's primary damage rotation in AoE is hard capped at 5 targets. That's where I draw the line. So if you have a class with some abilities hard capped at 5, but some abilities that they can cast in AoE that will hit everything, and so they'll still, you know, gain meaningful damage per target for pulling targets 6 through 10. That's what's important to me, because otherwise, you know those pulls in Freehold where you've got like, you know, the 1 5-pack and another 5-pack. There should be an incentive to combine and do 2 of those at once. You know, even if it's riskier, even if it's slower, or even if it's not that much faster than pulling them separately, it should be at least a little bit faster.
Sure. And think about like historically, like all the dungeons that are viewed favorably, they have very similar things in common. Generally, they're open concept, and generally they enable you to pull in such a way that you're like combining a bunch of packs at once and like doing these like pulling off these 6 strategies. Freehold is like probably the best implemented dungeon inside of BFA because it is both. You're able to like do 2 packs at once a lot of the time. Like you need to skillfully do it. Like you can't pull 3 harpooners at once, just as an example. But you can skillfully pull 2 packs into one another, and it is done quite regularly. You just think about it in Legion. There was some like Eye of Ashara.
Legion was like pull 70 guys and
yeah, okay. But okay, let's just take Freehold as an example. I think Freehold should be like the template that they use to move forward as to how they design dungeons.
I agree. Yeah, I think Freehold is the best dungeon in BFA. Freehold and like Underrot like Kragmaw's room. Kragmaw's room is just like yeah, you can pull 10 mobs in there, but like good luck. That's you're biting off a lot, right?
Underrot is like a good take on a tube dungeon because the room is actually open concept. I agree with that. That's actually a really good point, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like I don't mind dungeons that have that are linear as long as it's not like you're literally told what pack to pull in what order. Yeah, I agree with Undad in chat as well. Junkyard is super good, except for the robots have kind of hijacked that dungeon.
Okay, so that dungeon is actually just kind of a mistake because either the dungeon is the easiest dungeon imaginable because you have 5 people with zap bots, or the dungeon is the hardest dungeon imaginable because you don't have 5 people with zap bots, and there's no distinction to make. But that is a cool dungeon by design with how open it is. I don't like the HK bot, but that's a different problem.
All right, let's talk about GCD changes. So Sloot asked if there were any updates on the GCD changes. Ian said that they were looking for feedback on where we still felt like the GCD was a pain point.
I think I have a couple. Frenzy Regeneration and
Light the
Vengeance
Protector.
Demon Hunter.
Oh, Fiery
Oh,
Brand.
okay. Light the Protector, Fiery Brand. Yep. I feel like it's most relevant on tanks, and I don't know why it is. I think it's because they have like
Well,
more
these are supposed to be
split-second decisions.
reactive heal. Like, Light of the Protector is supposed to be a reactive heal, but you can't react if you're off the GCD. I have a problem with also popping multiple cooldowns for like 5 seconds in a row. Like you're just like, all right, Rune of Power, Arcane Power, you know, charged up or whatever, and then you like finally can start casting your Arcane Blasts and stuff. Or you're like, all right, you know, Festering Strike, Dark Transformation.
Fury Warrior has like three damage levels of which they have to like.
Fury Warrior's like Recklessness, Ice Whirlwind, Blood or whatever, and then they're going. So what I'm saying is basically the one area where I have problems on the GCD is these spots where you would have popped all your cooldowns at once and you're instead just popping them all spread out over a period of 5 seconds or 10 seconds. That doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good to just be popping your cooldowns for a long time and not dealing damage. So I think that what they should do is rebalance those abilities. I understand that they don't want us to be incentivized to macro a bunch of stuff together all at once. I'm fine with that. But I don't want to be there casting a bunch of buttons in a row. So, like, make Arcane Power drop a Rune of Power beneath your feet. And, like, rebalance Rune of Power to have a longer cooldown by itself. But make it so when you press Arcane Power, you know, you generate 4 Arcane Charges and drop a Rune of Power. And, you know, that way, all of those things that you would be popping all at once if they were off the GCD, get popped all at once by your major cooldown.
Yeah, I think it should be like a case by case basis and like a class by class basis. I also for tanks, I think the biggest issue for tanks is that there are a bunch of casts that are 0.5 seconds long, and you can't just reactively play against that.
Right.
That whatever abilities are on the GCD, you're just like, oh, I'm getting Fervent Strike. That's a 0.5 second cast, or I'm getting shot by Sky Captain Crag. That's a 0.5 second cast. I can't reactively play against that. Like, what the fuck are you supposed to do about that?
Yeah. That's definitely a problem. All right, we've got some rapid fire questions then that were asked, so we can go through these, and I guess rapid fire these too. Master Looter was talked about. They have no plans to bring it back because of the path they've committed to. I'm kind of resigned to this being the world we live in. I'd like to have Master Looter, but I guess I don't really care anymore. Like, game's just
bad choice. You know what? Not exactly the biggest issue
no big deal.
On my
whatever.
It sucks. Not exactly the worst thing.
It's like when you've got like a hangnail. It's like, yeah, it's pretty annoying. Like, I'd like to get rid of it, but it's not going to affect my ability to go about my day. Mission table. Yes, adventures are part of the Sanctum/Covenant system. It's not central, but it's something you can do on your phone. They're looking to evolve the gameplay and have a little more this time. I actually have seen some more data mining about this. There's going to be like an auto-battler style gameplay to the mission table, this expansion.
I don't hate this.
Like, yeah, I'm happy with that. That's cool.
Mission table, again, similar to the hangnail. Not exactly... doesn't affect me, really. It's okay.
Gear swapping in dungeons, no current plans. We'll continue to discuss. I believe that BFA gear swapping was better than Legion gear swapping.
I believe that BFA would have been miserable if they had gear swapping with how Azerite works out and how essences work out.
In particular, it would have been bad with BFA system, but I think that even in I think that gear swapping, just in general, the way to optimally play around it is to have like 20 different gear sets, and you have Opie wheel or whatever that you switch between them. And to be optimal, you should be swapping every time you drop combat. Swapping off trinkets that you just used to swap in trinkets that you haven't used. Swapping out, for your 3 target stat weights instead of your 4 target stat weights.
What Ian said is that he wants you to actually have to make a decision coming in, like walking into the dungeon. You shouldn't be allowed to be a specialist at everything. You should have to make a distinction and like make a choice coming into the dungeon.
Yes.
Like what you want to specialize in. And I don't necessarily.
I think that, making an impactful choice for the length of the dungeon is also something they should do with Covenant abilities. That is how Covenant abilities should work. You should be making that choice before the dungeon, not before the expansion.
Wow, Dratnus, you were fucking brilliant. Thank you.
So the gear swapping, I would actually be fine with like once or twice per dungeon swapping gear. That's something that I could get behind, because then you're still making a choice. It's still impactful. But unlimited gear swapping, I think we're better without it.
Yeah. I agree. I don't know. It was weird because I enjoyed the legendaries. I enjoyed swapping legendaries between legendary sets in Legion. I thought that was just like a fun part of the game, but that only affected a very few number of people. But if this is the pillar that they wish to stand on, okay.
Yeah, definitely not a big deal. That's like if I had an hour to lobby Blizzard Entertainment, I would not spend any of it on gear swapping.
It makes the game easier for me ultimately, even though it may make it like slightly
Yeah,
less.
clearly the skill cap is higher with gear swapping there, but like, is it actually good skill to just like, correctly swap your gear between every time you drop combat? To me, like, I found that more annoying than like. I mean, yes, obviously there's skill to it, but I found it annoying as well to actually execute that.
Yeah, I agree.
Tier sets. Magic 8 Ball says quite possibly it's something their art team wants to do again. It won't be there for a 9.0, but they want to do it later in the expansion. They want to modernize tier sets. Great. I think that really less than like the exact implementation of tier sets, what you and I are both really looking for, Tettles, is my class functioning slightly different in 9.1 than it does in 9.0, and slightly different in 9.2 than it does in 9.0. Because in BFA, our class basically was unchanged from 8.0 to 8.3. Like, you got a major cooldown with your essence, and like, that was it. Your class, once you got your good Azurite pieces on week 2 of the expansion, with the good traits, your class functions the same way the whole way through.
I mean, I don't care about it, but a lot of people care about the transmog, and that is also probably something that they should have looked at and thought about what actually happens whenever they remove it.
Definitely,
people really care about transmog.
They said, "Don't trust us. We're gonna make some epic armor-based tier set or armor-based transmogs," and people aren't huge fans of the like armor-specific like bod and Eternal Palace tier armor sets. So yeah,
yeah. I think just functionally, as long as my class changes tier to tier, and it should impact my class directly. That was the problem that I always had with Azurite, is that the generics were just as balanced as the class-specific ones, so you always wanted the generics. I think
they kept making like the new stuff in each patch was always a new generic, right? It was like, aside from when they added a couple new Azurite traits in 8.1, there's like, all right, it's Undulating Tides, which is a generic one, or it's Heart of Darkness, which is a generic one. It wasn't like new class-based stuff to change your rotation and things.
Precisely, and ultimately, I just don't find that very fun. I mean, some of the best essences are the ones that change your class, like Best of Feeling,
Lucid,
like Vision of Perfection, Memory of Lucid Dreams. Yeah, exactly. Those feel the best because they're absolutely altering your class. Like Blood of the Enemy for Outlaw Rogue is also a really good feeling because it alters how you're like doing your rotation, like double deadshot windows and shit like that, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep, there's definitely there are some essences that are fairly good, but that's still just like one change to all expansion.
Sure.
All right. Other than that, I think Titanforging.
Yeah. Forging, Titanforging. That's what I was going to say.
Yeah, this is kind of bad news for us here. Titanforging is not coming back, and our podcast is named Titanforge.
I think you and I need to discuss a different name maybe in the future.
Yeah, I think we might need to rename the podcast. I'm not trolling. Like I think that I don't know. I keep saying this, but I'm kind of worried that in 3 years if our podcast is named the Titanforge Podcast, new WoW players aren't going to know that that's a WoW podcast. So
yeah, we're gonna need to probably think about it. If you guys are listening, you should either tweet at us or you could probably DM some of us. If you guys have any ideas for new naming of this, maybe we'll consider renaming this.
Yeah, and if you really want to be smart about this, buy the URL for whatever good name you come up with, and then ransom it to us.
Shut up!
You make some nice money. Yeah, the Leaden Foot Podcast. That's a good name.
What about the Horrific Vision Podcast? There's no way.
The Corruption Podcast. Style. Yeah, there's no way that name will be obsolete soon.
Covenant Podcast.
All right. Other than that, anything else?
Mythic Plus and Affixes. Mythic Plus and Affixes. They talked about that. I don't know if that's on that page.
It is indeed.
Okay, yeah, you can go ahead.
So, revamping Mythic Plus affixes. Nothing specific to announce. They're happy with the structure of Mythic Plus. They're happy with how seasonal affixes turned out. Maybe some tuning. They do want to chase Kiss Curse, which is the type of affix where there's some positive in addition to some negative. Which is like Awakened. Awakened is a Kiss Curse affix. Because you get the skip out of it. No plans to blow it up and put it back together. I think this is reasonable. I think that as long as they put... as long as they learn the right lessons from Awakened and stuff, and make seasonal affixes like Awakened and not like invested in beguiling. I would worry that if they blew it up and put it back together, we would just be, we'd have old quaking and stuff back.
Yep, in-game leaderboards is what I'd be looking for. They also mentioned words of an AOTC / cutting edge type of structure.
Yep,
but they don't want people to be pressured into doing content like that.
Fair enough.
And then also, if people want, he alluded to the fact, like Ian alluded to the fact that there may be a world where people who only want to do dungeons only have to do dungeons to get loot. Something along the lines of if you run more dungeons, you may get more options for loot or more specific loot, or maybe even like a raw number of loot more.
Just let me smash together 5 items of the normal 15 item level, and it turns into one, 10 item levels higher or whatever.
Yeah, and the direct quote is just let loot be loot, I think was the precise quote on the whole thing.
Right, loot is no longer going to do the other stuff there. The Titanforging and this corruption and everything.
Okay, so he said no Titanforging or Warforging or corruption. Are there going to be sockets still? Like I don't.
They said still sockets and avoidance and stuff.
He said tertiary. He said there's still stuff like avoidance.
I guess sockets is an open question. Yeah.
I don't know what sockets really mean, but yeah.
Either way, that's not a huge deal. Torghast up next. So we have a Torghast preview actually that's even newer than the stuff here from Ian. Do you want to move into that, or do you want to finish anything out from the?
We can talk about Torghast, then we can talk about the Necrotic Wake dungeon, I think, a little bit more in depth.
Okay, so Torghast. Here is a preview of that from Blizzard Entertainment. Is it live on the alpha yet? It will probably be live by the time this show gets in your ears if you're listening on iTunes or YouTube, but it's currently not on
tomorrow.
Alpha yet. Yeah.
I think all the speculation is tomorrow. I think it was supposed to come out today, but speculation is that it got delayed for some reason, so I think it's supposed to come out tomorrow.
Yeah, so soon we'll be able to test it on DH, Mage, Priest, and Warlock. And
Shame.
There are a couple different areas in here. So they have some areas with different names and different feelings about them. So the Scoldus Halls and the Fractured Chambers are the first areas we'll get to go in.
It's supposed to have a feel like a roguelike dungeon crawler, from what I understand.
Right. So always changing. And then every floor you climb, enemies get stronger, but you'll also get temporary skills called anima powers. So people have been talking about anima power being like an artifact power thing. It's not remotely like that.
Oh, there is no AP.
Yeah, there's no AP this expansion.
Thank God. Get that shit out of the game.
Levels will also become more complex in the higher you climb, so that there'll be traps and puzzles and locked doors that require keys from certain enemies. And then so anima powers you can get like, so here's like an example choice. You can get 300 Phantasma, which is like a temporary currency that you can buy other stuff from like vendors you'll find in Torghast. Or you can get the Crown of Obstinance. Enemies within 15 yards have their casting speed reduced by 30%.
Have you seen some of these buffs that you can get?
Yeah, some of them look, and some of them like interact.
I'm gonna start posting them in chat. You can start pulling them up and just like read what they are.
So this is the Pact of Infernal Intimacy. Your summoned demons gain 100% health and damage every time you ascend a floor. It's lost when the demon dies or is dismissed. That is powerful right there. Soul Platter here. The duration of your Dark Glare, Tyrant, or Infernal is increased by 100%, but it has a 50% chance to consume one of your freed souls when summoned. If a soul is consumed, it gains 100% increased damage. Now, freed souls is like it's kind of like the corrupted mementos or something that you're getting out of these. Something like that.
Yeah.
We're not quite sure exactly what that's going to look like. Cadaverous Eye.
It's gonna be dope. It's honestly just gonna be so fucking cool.
Eye Beam and Fell Devastation cooldown is reduced by 85% during Metamorphosis.
There's also one that, like, Heroic Throw on its first cast does 2,000% increased damage or some shit.
This
is like ridiculous.
This owns. These look awesome. And so I can't wait to play with these things. Torghast is something you can play with 1 to 5 players. It doesn't have a timer, but it does sort of have a timer. Once you die, a timer might start. So by and large, your failures in Torghast are measured in deaths, not with a timer. Dying repeatedly alerts the Terragru.
That one.
Terragru. A lumbering, ironclad creature that will appear at the level's entrance and slowly move towards its end. If he sees any heroes, he will chase them down and kill them. If he reaches the end of the level or kills all the players in the level, your run ends and you are thrown out of Torghast. So that's the that
Tarantula.
The ragtag.
Yeah.
will end your run eventually. Only if you die a couple times that is at start. So you can play it slow and steady, wins the race. And then if you die, you'll get this like hectic, timed bit eventually. But until then, you can have it's a departure from the time system of like Horrific Visions.
Can you click that one that Honey linked and said, check this one out, Lamau? It says Timebreaker's Paradox. What is it?
All right, Timebreaker's Paradox. Time Warp lasts 200% longer, but causes all affected players to die at the end?
Huh.
Oh.
200% longer.
So you get an extra minute and a half of lust or whatever? I mean, if this like resets every floor that you climb, you could use this in the last 2 minutes of the floor or whatever. Surrender to Magus? Yeah.
Surrender to Magus. Shut up.
That's on me. That's on Dad.
That's bad. That's a bad joke.
That owns. That is fantastic. Hey, speaking of Surrender to Madness, the new Surrender to Madness kind of sucks.
Shadow Priest is kind of sucky. If you're looking to play another class, I would recommend, if you're a Shadow Priest player, I would hop on the Moonkin or Warlock train. I think probably your best.
Well,
bet.
I don't know if it sucks yet, and they actually get to cast Void Bolt during their Mind Flay cast now, which is a pretty nice increase. But Surrender to Madness in particular, it looks like it's got a unfortunate lame effect. All right, Dissolving Vial. Corruption also reduces enemy movement speed by 60%.
Yeah, it's Sacrolash. Sacrolash is back, baby.
Sacrolash is Dark Spite. Love to see that. Welcome back.
Welcome back, our Warlock Overlords.
Yep. If only you could bring this into a Mythic Plus Keystone. That would be
Welcome
really
back,
good.
our Warlock Overlords.
Yep. So that's our stuff here. That's Torghast's, the basic idea of it. I'm so excited to get in here and start playing this tower. I feel like the tower is going to be where I spend my life for the next couple of years. I hope they make a Mythic Tower Invitational, man.
Do we want to squad stream this tomorrow whenever the tower comes out, Dratnus? Are you going to wake up early enough?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, we can squad stream tomorrow.
Yeah, it'll be up at like 9 a.m. Pacific or something. Is that when they usually make the changes? That kind of stuff?
I have no idea.
All right, I'll wake up early. Do a tower stream. Every time the Taragrui kills us, we'll do an ad break.
We'll take a shot.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no. That would be a way for the Taragrui to kill us in real life, too.
Yeah, we get an ad break. I hate that. That's a terrible idea.
Okay, so that is Torghast. Legendaries are coming out of Torghast, too. Very cool. So, and here's one part that they've already said, but I'm really excited about. You are in full control. You can choose which type of equipment you'll make and what powers will go into them for your legendaries. This is so good. This is part of the reason I'm so like vocal about the few things that I don't like about Chatelaine so far, is that it seems like this could be just an A+ expansion.
Dude, I just love the idea of the Torghast. I hope it just fucking owns just so hard, and I hope Mythic Plus is just fucking lit and the raids are just sick, and then the expansion would be so great. And if Torghast is Island Expeditions, then I'm going to be on suicide watch for the next 2 years.
vertical islands, I've heard Torghast described as.
I will literally fucking just be forever sad.
So sad. Yeah. Yep. All right, Necrotic Wake. Let us talk about the Necrotic Wake dungeon.
That is just feedback.
So yeah, here's our TTV Tettles forum post for anybody who wants to check out TTV Tettles' forum post here. Let's see, I'm gonna...
I actually ran this dungeon a bunch of times.
Give it a little heart there.
Thank you, Dratnus.
For TTV Tettles' forum post. And then, let's see, we'll report it as well. No.
Okay. But basically, there was a couple of things that I noticed in the Necrotic Wake, and it was like the first and foremost thing, the fact that it doesn't have checkpoints is a joke. Stop that. Please make checkpoints in every single dungeon that you ever make. Always.
Every single boss should just give you a checkpoint. It's
I 100% agree.
It is 2020. We've come so far. We know so much. We know better.
Or even okay, so after the first boss should have a checkpoint, but
It's no big deal, right? Because that's right at the entrance, so it's like
it's right at the entrance. The second boss absolutely should 100% have a checkpoint. The third boss doesn't need one because if the second boss has one, then you can just portal up to the third boss and then portal up to the last boss. But the second boss should absolutely have a checkpoint. It's just every single it's the what Dradna said. Every single boss should.
Yeah, you should either have a checkpoint or be spawn within like 20 yards of where the boss died or whatever. Get there in 20 seconds or less. All right, next point here on this list is there are entirely too many caster mobs in direct vicinity of one another after the first boss. So yeah, you were talking about this earlier, right? The mages, the sorcerer, and the necromancers. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So the mages, you'll have two of them out at once, and they cast Frostbolt Volley on you, and they'll just like spam cast it. And then the necromancer casts Necro Bolt on your tank, and then the sorcerers, I don't remember what they cast. I think they also cast Necro Bolt, but I'm not 100% sure on that anymore. It felt exactly like I was fighting the very beginning of Shrine of the Storm again, and I'm just like, can we stop with this? It was like what I was talking about earlier. It's like I don't fundamentally understand how they're supposed to how they expect you to do this dungeon. They expect you to actually just like sap mobs, because I'm of the opinion that every pack of trash should be doable by itself. But whenever I zone into a normal dungeon and with a competent group of people, with a competent group of players, I am wondering whether or not I'm going to wipe to this pack of trash or not. It makes me wonder, like, what's the point?
Yeah, it's like the double honor guard pull in Natal, right? It's just like, why, why?
I hate the feeling of like having mandatory CC on one pack of trash. I think every single pack of trash should be doable on its own at minimum. And then if you're trying to double pull and stuff like that, then that's more on you.
All right, let's talk about the final boss as well. Now Thor the Rhymebinder. So can you give us a quick what exactly is going on this boss fight?
Okay, so why I had negative feedback on this boss? Basically, it's infinite scaling's nightmare. So think about how Vic Goth ends up functioning, where you get like a bunch of tentacles, and like if you're doing the boss really slow, then you have like you'll have to do like 6 tentacles all the time. This is like a different version of that. So you get picked up by a Valkyr, and you have to go run this gauntlet area, and then you have to kill a mob at the end of the gauntlet. Then you take this ride, and you go back up to the top platform. If you don't complete it in 50 seconds, you die. But if you complete it in like 30 seconds, then you like almost immediately get picked back up by the Valkyr again. And that's like really awkward, because then it's just your tank and your healer, and all 3 DPS are running at the exact same time. And it's just your tank and healer trying to solo the boss while all your DPS are running this gauntlet. Forever in limbo.
Yeah.
Or if you're too slow, then your tank gets picked up and then you just wipe. But I've seen that once too.
Yeah.
It's just foreshadowing scaling. Like so in one group I ran, I had issues with it because we had 2 DPS that were not exactly the sickest. And then the other group I had, we didn't have any problems, and we only had one person run the whole entire time. But it was just definitely foreshadowing scaling problems that I saw.
Yeah, I think that's the kind of thing, like, they're fairly likely to end up hitting a good time based on that ability. Eventually.
Exactly. Yeah. I think that needs to get changed. That's why I was giving just feedback on it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like it was just a problem that I noticed.
All right. For anybody who wants, by the way, there's screenshots you can find of all the Shadowlands dungeons on Reddit from just somebody like flying through the client. THD posted it in our chat, and I'll try and remember to post it in our in the description below as well. So if anybody wants to look through that, I don't want to do that on air right now though, because of course that will be bad for the audio only listeners. So at your leisure, you can take a look through all the new Shadowlands dungeons. There is, however, one screenshot I do want to share with you guys, which is an ability from one of the dungeon journals here. It's called Blood and Glory from a boss called Hazak. Upon reaching 100 energy, Hazak forces 2 players into the dueling pit below. The winner of the duel is granted glory, while the loser is affected by blood. If neither player is defeated within 30 seconds, both players are affected by cowardice. And glory is a 25% damage done increase, blood is a 10% damage done decrease, and cowardice is a 50% damage done decrease. So you got it. Somebody's got to win this duel. What do you think about this, Tettles? JP put it on his Twitter. It's a dungeon journal thing.
Is that one of the bosses?
Yeah, it's a boss ability.
Okay, so somebody has to win. Okay, so basically you're going to be giving that to somebody who has their cooldowns up. Like,
well, you're going to be doing that. I'm going to be popping my cooldowns to win this thing.
Okay, that's actually hilarious.
I don't think I'm alone for this. I'm pretty sure that's normally what's going to happen in Group Finder and stuff for this.
In Group Finder, sure you're gonna do that. But, like, dude.
If the keystone level is anything except for we are going to deplete this key as a result of me taking this action, I am popping my cooldowns and winning this duel.
I have determined that I am no longer doing dungeons with Dratnos, as I know that he is going to look at me. He's going to mark for death me, and then instant 5-point kidney shot me, and then I'm just going to die.
Yeah, this owns. This is really fun. Yeah, JB, there's a fun thing in here where he's like, JB was like, you know, this dungeon is going to be so great for trolling your dumb teammates. And then down in the comments, Yoda was like, I'm not sure you've thought through how this will play out if healers are eligible targets, which is a good response. Yeah,
JB's dead every time, bro.
Healers might not be eligible though for this, so that might be something.
That's a fun mechanic. That's actually a really fun mechanic. I like that.
That owns. So I'm happy to see that. Anyways, that about is our look through here of Shadowlands stuff. And is there anything I missed on your feedback that you wanted to give about the dungeon?
No, there was nothing else. I actually thought that there was a lot of dispels that were kind of awkward. I'm not a fan of poison or disease dispels, and there were a lot of disease dispels and a lot of enrages in that dungeon. So
yeah, they didn't
not
really
exactly
unprune a lot of extra ways to dispel those, right? So it's still just kind of like.
So rogues have Shiv now, but no.
That doesn't dispel your own. Yeah, we have an extra enrage dispel, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Shiv. Yeah,
exactly.
Which is good. You know, rogues. I would say the one thing I was really looking for in Shadowlands was to get a little bit more utility on my rogue. So glad.
You know. I was really looking for Moonkin to get 3 more buttons worth of utility as well. I don't really know how this has occurred where my class that's known as the utility class got more, but you know what? I'll take it.
Yeah, have you gotten like yourself like a foot pedal or whatever for your extra keybinds?
I bought a new mouse. Like straight up, I bought a new mouse.
That makes sense.
I need more buttons.
Makes perfect sense. Yeah. All right, let's move on into our question and answer section then to close out the show. We've got one from Twitter on our podcast tweet. Do you think in the coming weeks we will see 2 Unholy Death Knights leave the meta? Presumably this is in the MDI. What do you think about that? Tettles, do you think we're going to see 2 Unholy Death Knights disappear?
Disappear? No, I think that they're going to be slightly less used than originally anticipated. I was going into the MDI season of the impression that double Unholy was going to be present for basically every dungeon, and now that I've seen it, like we've seen a whole entire weekend, I believe that double Hunter will be far more common. I do think there's still dungeons that double Unholy are the best in, especially if you are able to pull around their massive glaring strengths.
That being said, like there were a couple of runs where it looked like single Unholy was kind of a better Unholy comp than double Unholy, because like
single Unholy with an MM Hunter and a Rogue, maybe. Yeah,
not an MM Hunter. Tettles,
a BM Hunter.
Yeah. MM Hunter is target capped. Tettles.
Victory. Okay, you're right.
All right. Next question from Discord. Bisavert, maybe. I don't really. Okay, I'm gonna stop trying to figure out what. Bisavert. Yeah, that's
an aversion to bis.
Okay, curious about your thoughts on positive seasonal affixes. Basically, things that make the dungeon easier. Originally, I would have thought the idea would have been absurd, but Awakened almost makes dungeons significantly easier. Almost always makes dungeons significantly easier. So I moved into the why not territory. For example, imagine them sticking permanent buffs that you get from murdering underpulled packs and mini-bosses. This is what I hoped that Beguiling would be. I hope that Beguiling was like, Tide's Emissaries give you, you know, this buff that sacks when you kill them, and Void Emissaries give you this other one.
They were put in shitty packs. Like, okay, imagine if like Void Emissaries gave you like one player just a buff and they could use it, and it would like say it would take away 50% of the boss's health immediately, and then they put the Void Emissary in the shitty packs, like the Honor Guard pack, like the double Honor Guard pack in front of Volcall or something like that, and then you could just like blast the boss down with it. That would be incentivized to actually play that terrible ass trash pack.
Yeah, I agree that like some kind of those kind of effects, because like if you look at it, Awakened is still worse than not having a seasonal affix active, right? Like you still lose time from killing 4 extra mini bosses compared to just like doing skips with Shroud or whatever, but it does, you know, it doesn't feel bad, right? It feels like you're getting options instead. So yeah, I would love to see them moving in a direction of like you pay a price to earn a reward with the seasonal affix, which is exactly how Awakened works.
And so Ian, in his interview, said that they weren't completely scrapping the affix system. What are some things that you would actually like to see changed about the affix system? Because for me, it's still constantly it's going to be the seasonal affix needs to be something a little bit more Kiss Curse-esque, and then Tyrannical and Fortified just needs to go. Are you about the same opinion here?
Yep, Lob, Tyrannical, and Fortified. I would like to play 100% of weeks and not 50%. And which 50% it is kind of depends on the season. And there have been some seasons where they were pretty close, and those were good. But that could just be every season, just Lob, Tyrannical, and Fortified. Delete those affixes, or I don't know, rework them. But I'm fine with just lobbing them instead. Other than that, I think that there are some specific affixes, like Explosive, I'd like to rebalance a little bit. Explosive, I think, should be spawning maybe a little bit more on single target and should spawn dramatically less often than it currently does on 10 targets.
The diminishing return. Wow, I thought diminishing return was the only thing that DPS class has gotten out of fixes.
Let's just target cap explosives, all right? Explosives only spawn on 5. That's the only thing I'd be fine with hard target capping at 5 targets is explosives.
That's a solid tweet. I'm going to tweet that out right now. Thank you.
All right, you're welcome. I would also be happy to see bolstering getting a duration on the buff or something. Or maybe affecting damage but not health, the way that the Colossus in Atal'Dazar was nerfed to be pullable. Because that thing basically was just bolstering on a mob. So fixing that, same way. Okay.
I want an in-game leaderboard, an in-game Raider IO system. He mentioned, or he alluded to, cutting-edge AOTC awards for players. I would like to see something similar to Hall of Fame. Or a gladiator system. Those would both be dope for Mythic Plus. Yeah, I think that's if you think stuff about made for the
PvP gets 2 mounts, a couple titles, 3 full transmog recolors that you get for progressing up the ladder in PvP. So the same level of support for Mythic Plus, I think would be really, really exciting to see.
Yep, the depleter. We don't need gladiator titles. We need depleter titles.
Yeah, the depleter board. That's what they could call it. Yeah. I would like to see that a lot. All right. Question in chat from Cardinarch. Do you think that Beguiling would have been more successful if they added a requirement of a number of emissaries killed to finish the dungeon, which means they could have put them in less pulled packs? I think that the problem with Beguiling was when it was in, it forced you to pull certain packs certain ways. So, I don't think that forcing us to have pulled, I don't think that you fix that problem just by putting in, a requirement for number of Beguiling things to pull, no? It might have helped a little bit fix the problem of, the huge incentive to skip them, though, yeah?
I mean, you don't even see it with Awakened, right?
Yeah.
Awakened, there are, quote, mandatory mobs that you have to pull in Awakened because you have to play them with a final boss, and people still play them with a final boss.
Yeah. All right.
I actually like how Awakened has been set up, though. This whole entire this season kind of owns. Awakened, I'm a big fan.
Awakened slaps. This is a great affix. Inspired affix by far. Definitely the best seasonal affix. I did not think we were going to top Reaping, but I actually think they topped Reaping with this one. And Reaping was sweet. That was really fun. Good that we got that done before the target cap has removed that from ever being fun ever again. All right.
God, I hope Mythic Plus is better next expansion. It would be a shame if it somehow got worse. Even if it stayed the same, I would be kind of okay with it. If it got worse, I would just be so fucking mad.
I might just spend my whole time playing Torghast. Depending on how the target cap changes actually play out, I could easily see Mythic Plus no longer being something I want to spend that much time in. But if Torghast owns, then I guess that'll be okay. But definitely would be a shame. So that's why I'm advocating for the target cap to change a little bit, because I foresee the current implementation of it really hurting my desire to do Mythic Plus. All right.
I agree.
I think, though, that will about do it for our show here, Mr. Tettles. I think we're all set.
I think that was it. I enjoyed this show, just the two of us.
Yeah, it's nice. I enjoyed the old cowboy Tettles over here and the with the broken webcam showing up on our show.
I'll have my webcam fixed by next stream.
You don't have to. This is fine.
Shut up.
All right. So yeah, that's the end of our show. Bye, everybody.